Something strange is happening to men today. Something quiet, almost invisible, but powerful enough to reshape the entire landscape of modern masculinity. For generations, men were taught that a meaningful life required intensity, ambition, pursuit, romantic passion, and the constant drive to achieve more. But now, millions of men are moving in a different direction. They're not chasing passion. They're not trying to win the game. They're choosing something that society almost never talks about. Peace. Not the dramatic movie version of peace. Not enlightenment. Not isolation on a mountaintop. But something simpler. Something softer. Something they never realized they were starving for. A life without constant conflict. A life without pressure to impress. A life without emotional chaos. A life where they can breathe. And here's the twist that nobody saw coming. Men aren't choosing peace because they're weak. They're choosing it because passion, especially modern passion, has become too costly. In surveys across the US, Canada, and Europe, men aged 18 to 44 increasingly report that their biggest desire in relationships isn't excitement, romance, or intensity. It's stability. It's calm. It's emotional safety. A generation of men is quietly walking away from drama-heavy relationships, high-pressure careers, and environments that drain more than they give. Not because they don't care, not because they've given up, but because passion, modern passion, has begun to feel like a war with no victory. And when passion becomes a battlefield, choosing peace starts looking like survival. This shift isn't loud. It's not a rebellion. It's a withdrawal. A silent recalibration of what men value, what they fear, and what they're no longer willing to sacrifice themselves for. So the real question is, why is peace winning? Why now? And what does this transformation tell us about the modern relationship between men, women, work, and emotional life? To understand that, we first need to go back into the expectations men inherited, the pressures that shaped them, and the emotional cost they were never allowed to admit. If you ask most men why they're pulling away from intense relationships, they won't give you a dramatic story. They won't say they've been betrayed. They won't say they've lost hope. They'll just shrug and say something like, "I don't have the energy for it anymore." But behind that simple sentence is a quiet exhaustion that's becoming one of the biggest unspoken issues of modern masculinity. Because today's man isn't walking away from passion because he doesn't want love, adventure, connection, or intimacy. He's walking away because the cost has become too high and the return too uncertain. And here's where the numbers tell the truth men rarely admit out loud. According to the American Psychological Association, men today report record high levels of emotional fatigue, especially in relationships. Not because they don't care, but because they feel they have to carry more than they can safely express. For decades, society has pushed a very specific message at men. Be reliable. Be stable. Be the one who doesn't break. Be the one who provides certainty. Men grew up believing that to be loved, they must be strong. But somewhere along the line, strong slowly transformed into something toxic. Never struggle. Never fail. Never need support. Never ask for help. And when you live like that long enough, something inside you burns out. Not suddenly, not dramatically, quietly, like a light bulb that starts flickering years before it finally goes out. Men aren't withdrawing from passion because they prefer emptiness. They're withdrawing because passion today often demands emotional performance they were never allowed to develop. They're expected to be open, but not fragile. Communicative, but not too much. Emotionally available, but never emotional. And the truth is this: you can't ask someone to pour from a cup they were never allowed to fill. Modern men have become experts at suppressing pain, hiding stress, and pretending they're fine, until the inside pressure hits a point where silence feels safer than connection. This is why so many men now choose the peaceful option: a quiet life, predictable routines, low emotional stakes. Not because they hate passion, but because passion feels like a battlefield they don't have the armor for anymore. It's not commitment that scares them, it's depletion. It's not intimacy they avoid, it's emotional risk. It's not love they reject. It's the version of love that requires them to constantly prove their worth while never showing their wounds. And unless you've lived inside a man's silence, you'll never understand how heavy that becomes. More and more men have stopped asking, "How do I build a passionate life?" and started asking, "How do I protect the little piece I have left?" This shift isn't about weakness. It's about survival. And the saddest part? Most of these men aren't even aware that burnout is the thing they're running from. They just know passion used to feel exciting, and now it feels dangerous. Not because of others, but because of everything they were taught to hide inside themselves. For most men, peace isn't just a preference, it's survival. Because here's the truth nobody wants to acknowledge. Men today are exhausted. Not physically, emotionally, psychologically, socially. And the modern world has become a place where every interaction feels like a potential fight. Not a physical one, a psychological one. A fight where the rules constantly change, the expectations keep shifting, and the correct answer seems to depend entirely on someone else's mood. Men aren't choosing peace because they're weak. They're choosing peace because conflict has become too expensive. And here's the part that hits hardest. Modern conflict doesn't just drain men, it strips them of their identity. A disagreement in a relationship used to be a disagreement. A bad date used to just be a bad date. A mistake at work used to simply be a mistake. Now, a disagreement becomes a character flaw. A bad date becomes a moral indictment. A mistake becomes proof you're not emotionally mature, supportive enough, communicative enough, or aware enough. Every conflict feels like a test you didn't study for, and a test where one wrong word can ruin everything. So men withdraw. Not because they don't care, but because caring too loudly gets them punished. And the world calls this withdrawal immaturity, avoidance, or emotional unavailability. But if you listen carefully, really carefully, you'll hear something else. It's self-defense. In relationships, in friendships, at work, online, men face a constant choice. Speak honestly and risk conflict, or stay quiet and keep the peace. Most choose the second option, not because they prefer silence, but because they've learned what honesty costs. Hours of arguing, emotional punishment, being misunderstood, being judged before being heard, or worst of all, being labeled the villain. So men choose peace, even when it means swallowing frustration, burying hurt, or pretending something didn't bother them. Because what's the alternative? A fight they already know they'll lose. Modern men have become experts at conflict triage. Is this worth the argument? Is this worth the lecture? Is this worth the emotional explosion? Is this worth being misunderstood again? And most of the time, the answer is no. But choosing peace over and over comes with a price. Men begin to disappear from their own lives. They stop sharing opinions. They stop bringing up concerns. They stop expressing needs. They stop pushing back when something feels unfair. They stop revealing the parts of themselves that matter. Because every time they did, it turned into a conflict they never asked for. So they retreat into the one place that still feels safe: silence. And from the outside, it looks like men don't communicate. But from inside, men are thinking, what's the point of opening up if it only creates more chaos? This is why so many men choose peace. Not because peace is better than passion, but because passion, conflict, intensity, and emotional expression now come with landmines. And avoiding landmines feels safer than stepping on them, even if passion is what they secretly crave. There's a moment many men don't talk about. A moment when peace slowly begins to cross a line. Not dramatically, not with some explosion or crisis, but quietly, almost gently. It starts with choosing calm over conflict, then choosing silence over arguments, then choosing solitude over emotional risk, and eventually, choosing withdrawal over connection. This is the stage where the pursuit of peace becomes something darker. Not peace, but escape. Because avoiding chaos feels good at first. Stepping back feels smart. Creating distance feels safe. Until one day, you wake up and realize that your calm has become a cage you built with your own hands. And here's the brutal truth. Men often don't notice this shift until they're already deep inside it. The subtle slide into emotional numbness. When a man grows tired of conflict, he doesn't explode, he fades. He speaks less, feels less, shares less, dreams less. Not because he doesn't care, but because caring hurts too much. Most men aren't afraid of commitment. They're afraid of being required to perform emotionally 24/7. Afraid of being told they're calm is indifference. Afraid of giving everything, only to be told it still wasn't enough. So what do? They retreat. Internally first, then physically. You see it in their routines. More time at the gym, more time gaming, more time watching YouTube, more time in hobbies, and, ironically, less time engaging with anyone at all. And from the outside, it looks harmless. Let the guy have his space. But for many men, that space is not restorative. It's a slow emotional shutdown. When peace becomes a disguise. A lot of men today don't say, "I'm hurt." They say, "I'm tired." They don't say, "I feel disconnected." They say, "I just need quiet." They don't say, "I'm scared of conflict." They say, "I prefer peace." But beneath that calm exterior is a storm they never express. Because expressing it feels like another battle they'll lose. And men avoid battles they can't win. So instead of fighting for connection, they fight to feel nothing. Because nothing is safe. This is why so many women say, "He doesn't open up, he doesn't communicate, he doesn't show emotion." They assume it's selfishness, but often it's self-preservation. The hidden cost of choosing peace too often. The truth is, peace has a price. And for many men, that price is intimacy. The more he avoids conflict, the more he avoids vulnerability. The more he avoids vulnerability, the more he avoids emotional depth. The more he avoids emotional depth, the more he avoids connection. And the more he avoids connection, the more alone he becomes. Not because he wanted loneliness, but because loneliness was easier than pain. This is the quiet tragedy of modern masculinity. Men don't walk away because they don't feel. They walk away because they feel too much and have nowhere to put it. But here's the twist almost nobody sees coming. While society keeps insisting that men have checked out, that they're less ambitious, less driven, or less masculine, something far more profound is happening beneath the surface. Men aren't collapsing, they're recalibrating. For the first time in generations, men are quietly choosing inner peace over external validation. And that shift is reshaping relationships, work, and masculinity itself in ways we're only beginning to understand. And here's what's truly shocking. Men aren't choosing peace because they're weak. They're choosing it because they're done being drained. Done chasing relationships that feel like battlegrounds. Done performing in systems that offer no loyalty back. Done pretending that constant sacrifice is the price of being a real man. This isn't withdrawal, it's awakening. For decades, men were conditioned to push through anything, stress, conflict, disrespect, instability, as long as they provided and showed up. But modern men have learned something previous generations never had the courage to admit. If a man loses his peace, he loses everything. And so today's man will walk away from a relationship that drains him, a job that breaks him, a social circle that belittles him, a lifestyle that slowly kills him. Not because he doesn't care, but because he finally does. He cares about sanity. He cares about purpose. He cares about keeping the small piece of himself the world hasn't destroyed yet. And that makes him dangerous in a way that terrifies modern society. You cannot control a man who no longer fears losing things that never brought him peace. Many women interpret this new male behavior as, he's emotionally unavailable. He's afraid of commitment. He doesn't want love. He's lazy. He's immature. But the reality is simpler and more uncomfortable. He's tired of relationships where he is the only source of stability. Men aren't running from intimacy. They're running from chaos disguised as connection. They're done being emotional shock absorbers, done being treated like utilities, done becoming the villain whenever they express a boundary. Modern men aren't afraid of love. They're afraid of repeating the experience of being drained by it. And so they choose peace, even if it means choosing solitude. And this is where everything comes full circle. Men choosing peace isn't about rejecting passion. It's about refusing destructive passion. Men will still dive headfirst into a relationship that feels like partnership, not competition, understanding, not interrogation support, not pressure communication, not accusation growth, not warfare. Men aren't abandoning women. They're abandoning environments where they cannot breathe. And maybe, just maybe, this shift isn't a crisis. Maybe it's a correction. The future. What happens when men finally prioritize themselves? This quiet revolution is shaping a new kind of man. Calmer, because he no longer tolerates chaos; stronger, because he no longer fears walking away; wiser, because he knows peace is priceless; more selective, because not everyone deserves access to him; more grounded, because he builds from stability, not survival. And here's the part nobody expected. When men choose peace first, the passion that follows becomes real, not performative. Because passion without peace is just addiction. But passion built on peace is unstoppable. So if you've been wondering why so many men today seem distant, quiet, detached, or uninterested, maybe they're not disappearing. Maybe they're finally healing. Maybe they're rebuilding themselves in a world that demanded everything and gave back nothing. Maybe they're not choosing less passion. Maybe they're choosing the only path that keeps them alive. This is why modern men choose peace over passion. Not because they've given up, but because they've finally woken up.